So welcome to the brand new GNL Racing Media Studio. My name's Tricky. You may or may not know that already from some of my other streams with the team. We have been working very hard together to be able to bring a lot of brand new video footage from the team out to everybody. The team has worked together for a couple of years, and we originally started as a group on VR chat. So we figured why not integrate VR chat into our presentation style. This is my personal avatar, and you probably won't see me for a while in real life until we start doing IRL racing. We've been focusing on sim for the last couple of years, but we are building towards actually doing endurance racing in real life, which we've all wanted to do for a very long time. But I'd like to welcome you to the GNL Racing Media Center, and we have a lot of different worlds that we have put together that you may or may not have seen from previous videos, but we will be highlighting them a lot more in the coming months, so be on the lookout for that. Before we get into the race, let me explain a little bit about the series. So, the league that I've been participating in and kind of showing the team colors in is part of the Core Racing series. There's a complete video broadcast that's done for every single race, and it's a for money series, which means people are taking it a lot more seriously. There are actual divisions that drivers are split into based on ranking, and that allows for direct competition with your peers rather than competing against what a lot of people call aliens versus also the rookies and everything in between. It gives us something to strive for independently, even when we are not capable of necessarily winning the race overall. We can still win the division, which means there's multiple winners in the race. Listed in the description for the video, you'll find the Core Racing YouTube channel and also a link to the Discord page if you're interested in checking it out further. Everybody is welcome, and if you're an iRacing driver, I definitely recommend checking it out for either oval or for road course, but there's space for everybody, so come check it out. But let's dive right into Daytona. Yeah, this was a pretty typical start to any race when you're in the mid-pack. The problem here is always trying to react to the traffic that's coming up. And right up here, there's the first incident. So I start reacting as quick as possible at this point, but I jump to the outside and end up sticking my loaded wheels onto the grass, which means I can't turn. So that ends up sacrificing a bunch of positions here, dropping me out of my starting grid position of P13 significantly into the 20s. And then we dive straight back into the next lap here, and I'm following a pack trying to gain position. And I'm looking good here. All of a sudden I see the guy in front of me start to snap. You can kind of see the front end, and I'll go back to my cockpit view. But I have to dive to the outside again, losing myself several positions. And here from the cockpit view, you can see the rear end of that green car start to twitch, which is the sign that he's going to have issues. And sure enough, snaps it, and out I go again. Luckily, I kept myself from getting damaged, which was huge. So from there, I started trying to work my way back up and started trying to make passes. But here, coming into the bus stop, was a bit of an incident. I tried to get my nose in there, and the driver just didn't expect me to do it and cut across my nose. We'll go to the cockpit view and show you exactly what happened. I expected him to brake a little bit harder. He didn't. He cut across me. I ended up getting a warning in the league for that, but luckily it was a dude who I had an incident with before, so it is what it is. I ended up calling it a bit of payback, ironically, and we laughed it off at the end. So there's also incidents like this where drivers will be on worn tires about halfway through the race and start over committing in corners. But you can see me coming up to the bus stop, and I was trying to find a way around, but I got squeezed against the wall by this driver ahead, so I decided to back off rather than having a similar incident to what happened before, and started biding my time to look for options. So coming into turn 1, I start looking for an opening, and the driver ahead of the driver I'm trying to get an advantage of makes a mistake, touches wheels out, slows himself down, and I end up diving to the inside accidentally because I was actually trying to brake in time, and the driver ahead just didn't wasn't prepared for the braking. Neither was I. I ended up lunging to the inside here. So now that I was closing on this driver ahead, I finally get an opportunity to try drafting and making a pass using the draft and slingshotting myself around. But as I'm coming into the bus stop, now I have to worry about getting a better exit than him in order to widen the gap. Luckily, it looks like I just get a little bit more throttle in, and I'm able to widen that gap just enough that he doesn't get immediately back on my tail. From here, it was several laps where I was just slowly working my way up and finally found myself behind the driver ahead, which, if I remember correctly, is named Zane from the league. I only had a couple laps left before pitting, but I knew I was closing on him pretty quickly. As you can see, the gap is closing up very fast, and you can see a significant gap ahead of him to the next cars. So the plan was to use the draft as much as possible, but he ended up having a wide exit there, which gave me a chance to make it around. So I thought, okay, well, maybe he's going to bump draft me to get ahead, because it looked like he let me by. So coming up to the bus stop, rather than bump drafting me, he comes up alongside. And I'm instantly going, okay, well, I'll let him pass. And instead, as long as I can get some decent exits, I'll bump draft him so we can start catching the cars ahead. Even if we can gain a couple of tenths of a second, it would be in our best advantage. So I slowly close and make contact with his bumper, and we start doing the old shake and bake, which is pretty rare in the GT3 class, but when it comes to these long straights and working with groups, you can really take advantage of it. Of course, as we come down the front straight, I have to back off really quick because I don't know what his braking pattern is going to be, and he takes an inside line, which isn't really the best option there, which means it slows him down. But again, we go back to bump drafting on the back straight. More and more we keep doing this, but this is the last chance before the pit stop. The cars ahead had already pitted, so I knew that we needed to gain a little bit more time to try and undercut them as much as possible. As long as I got a good exit here, which I did, I gained a ton of time on him and came right up on him, which he was on the outside again for some reason, and slowed himself down. So I gave him a little bump, and then that is right when we both decide to call it quits here and dive into the pits. Now, I made a huge mistake here by backing off quite a lot and slowed myself down, allowing the car behind to catch and actually pass in the pit lane, which ended up being a huge mistake. And so after exiting the pit lane, it was time to try and catch the driver who tried to pass me in the pits. And lo and behold, I made a corner, and there was my drafting partner from just before pitting. So he ended up getting left behind because of a mistake on his part. So I started trying to use the draft to my advantage, coming up to the bus stop. Wasn't getting much progress there, unfortunately, but any little bit counts here, and you'll see I'm trying to close with, and then I'm not giving much room. But then we have another spin. So all of these are late spins, more than likely, because of the worn tires. So then coming up here, I saw my opponent that I was drafting with was coming up on another car, which I figured might open up an opportunity, because once they start battling, there's going to always be a slowdown of one or the other or both cars, which meant that I might be able to get past both. So I dove in here attempting to get a good exit so that I can at least gain on one of the other cars, one of the two cars by turn one. So right now it was looking like I was getting a really good exit here, and I started gaining on the nearest car, and as we come up to the start-finish line, it's looking like I'm going to catch him. So I start making a decision whether or not I'm going to take the inside, and I do. And I go ahead and commit and go light on the brakes and take that turn with no contact, which was pretty clean. I was very happy with that one. Then it was a matter of getting some decent cornering here, coming through the rest of the infield to see what I could do. So following that, you can see a huge gap between the driver ahead and the next few drivers that are just on the edge of the track vision here. They're entering the bus stop. So I decide I'm going to start bump drafting the guy ahead to try and gain as much time as I can on these straights. I decide to duck to the side to make sure that I don't rear end him hard as he brakes, because it's hard to get some braking markers there, but I do this lap after lap. You'll see coming up here where every time I get a run on him, I don't capitalize on taking the position. Instead, I bump draft him through the entirety of the banked turns and straights whenever I catch him, and then back off, exiting the banking. Most of this was as a result of me getting some really good exits coming out of the infield onto the first part of the banking, and also out of the bus stop as compared to the driver ahead. Like right here, he loses a little bit of traction, and I could have made the pass and probably kept ahead, but that wasn't going to benefit me in the long run when trying to catch the drivers ahead. You can actually see that I was sitting P16 here in the window, if you look closely enough, which means that I had a long ways to gain back still. But this was going to be the last lap before having to come in, and we were closing with another driver that he ends up rear-ending. So that ends up damaging him just a little bit. After exiting the pits here, we started coming out alongside yet another driver, which ended up causing an initial battle ahead of me for the preceding lap, which of course, battles ahead mean opportunity, so I was able to start closing the distance and getting options opened up. Like you can see here, I'm right in the mix. So I started looking for my options here, but ended up getting spooked because that is a high-speed corner that tends to cause issues back there. So I ended up popping the brakes a little too much. Took me another lap or two to catch up until I was able to make a play here and bounced off the driver ahead a little bit, but ended up making it past. The problem that comes from that, of course, is I was not in a position to make a play on the driver ahead, and because we had not caught any major groups, I then had him tailing me for a considerable period of time, so I had to make sure to get good exits through each of the interior corners to open up my options, especially when exiting back out onto the banking, which you can see I started to get some decent distance between me and the driver behind, but it wasn't quite enough. As we came through the interior section, I ended up misjudging one of the final corners in the interior and going wide into the grass, which meant that the driver behind once again was on top of me. But luckily, ahead there was a spun-out car, as you can see the dust there, which the driver ahead was struggling to get out, and we started approaching yet another driver. Which again, battle ahead means opportunity. I got a good exit out of the bus stop and started closing with the group ahead. Just enough of a toe into the front straight gave me some options coming into T1. And obviously, as they're close, they're going to hang each other up a bit. And about a lap later, we were all grouped up finally again, which allowed me to make a play right here. Unfortunately, I didn't get away clean this time, and now we're side by side in the infield, which is a dangerous proposition. We are now side by side, continuously battling through this sector, and I wasn't sure whether he was going to give me the room or not, so I hugged tight. He actually was afraid of me slipping out and gave me tons of room, which gave me the all clear. So up ahead now you can see my final target of the race, because time was then running out. So just as before, I'm aiming to get better braking and entry into the interior, and you can see me closing significantly with the driver ahead, so that gave me a good insight that I was likely going to be able to catch him. But the problem was that we have people behind me, so my goal was to not allow this guy a draft on the outer banking in the final laps, because we only had about 4 laps to go by my estimate at this point, and I wanted to make sure that these guys were not going to take advantage of us battling back and forth. So as I come out onto the banked track, I realized that best option was to start closing the distance as much as possible and start bump drafting the two of us away from the other 2 competitors behind. Problem was, he was slowing down significantly ahead of me, attempting to go defensive, thinking that I was going to try and take the position away from him. But with the next drivers ahead being more than 10 seconds up, I figured a bump draft was going to be the best bet. So in an attempt to gain P13, I didn't want to end up in P16. Here was the opportunity. I could have went ahead for the pass, but again, I didn't want to battle for it, so I backed off, let him take it, tried to declare my intentions as best I could, so that we could keep up the gap behind. And this is one of the final sets of bump drafts as I came in. I believe this was second to last lap. I was still bump drafting him towards the bus stop, backing off significantly as we enter the bus stop. And this is where I was aiming for a good exit so that I have the energy with the draft to be able to make the pass near the end, which is what I was aiming for. And here we come down the front straight with an attempt to make the overtake. I needed to get as much draft as possible coming up and close the distance. And I decided to go for it right here at the line, and just barely didn't make it. The gap ended up being 0.020 between us at the end. So I didn't quite make it back to my P13 starting position, but to me that really wasn't bad. It was a pretty good race, and I thought there was some really great battles in that, so I loved every bit of that. So thank you so much for joining me at the GNL Media Center. It was great having you, and thank you for sitting through my presentation of my Daytona race at Core Racing. I will be doing another one here likely in the next few days will be my filming of it, but the actual release of it will probably be in about a week after the release of this video of the previous week, which was Fuji Speedway, which was a rain session, was absolute chaos. I can't wait to show that to you guys. But thank you once again for joining me here, and thank you for supporting GNL Racing, and we will catch you next time.